Okay, welcome to the third Apron podcast. I am co-host Sam Quinn, my second episode at the helm here, joined as always by Yossi Goslin, but we also have a special guest, my coworker at CBS Sports, my friend, my former co-host of another podcast, Beyond the Arc, John Gonzalez. John, excited to be here.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor. I'm excited about this. I'm a big fan of both of you guys. You know what's great, Sam, is I don't have to drive this thing. I'm just gonna like steer it into a ditch from the passenger seat, from the shotgun seat. Normally I'm driving, and now you are, and so you have to do all the heavy lifting.
I'm going to come out of the gates with a Friday Night Lights reference. You're doing the Matt Saracen here. You're used to quarterbacking, but senior year, you're moving to wide receiver. I'm
Sure.
playing quarterback now. Yossi, I guess you're my left tackle. I don't know how we're going to put this football metaphor together, but we don't talk about football here. We talk about basketball. Yossi, how are you doing? I haven't given you a chance to speak yet.
I'm doing well. Just to add on to what we're talking about, it's nice for once in a while to, not do the heavy lifting, so to
Mhm.
speak. Just like I trust you so much with this. I just like let go. I'm like, and I'm excited for another. The first one was great. I had a lot of fun with you leading that, and I'm sure this is gonna be just as great.
You guys, I'm raring to go. I don't know where you're putting it out here like we're coal miners. Like we're talking about basketball. It's not that taxing to be in the main chair here. But our topic for today, topic doesn't sound right. Our game for the day, our gimmick for the day, what we're talking about for the day. Here's the plan. In the hypothetical world that we have invented, every player in the NBA has been put into a draft pool. All 30 teams have been wiped out. They're all gone. We're starting from scratch. We are going to do a draft where we draft the players that we would build a franchise around. This is a hypothetical franchise, but the players involved here are very real. You are taking all of the circumstances that come with the player, their age, their injuries, their contracts, any off the court things, everything that comes with the player, you are potentially drafting here. The idea here is to figure out if a team could have anybody, who would they pick? Before we start, any strategic notes? Anybody have any plans they want to reveal? Or do you guys want to save it for when we're actually drafting?
Wait. So we're not doing an hour and a half on Russell Westbrook to the Kings?
I assumed we would be, I assumed we'd wait like 3 or 4 games into the season and do like a
Ah,
4 hour Kings deep dive.
well, I'm not prepared then. All that research down the drain.
I am sure we will have chances to talk about Russell Westbrook on the Kings. It's going to be a delightful mess, but I'm just going to come out and spoil this now. I have no intention of drafting a Sacramento King tonight. So, yeah, sorry about that. There are a couple teams that didn't make my long list. I have no plans to draft a Chicago Bull either. So, we did not hold a lottery for this. Sorry, Kings. Sorry, Bulls. Although I guess they're not really lucky in the lottery anyway. They tend to pick like 11th or 12th. We have a set draft order, no snake. We are just going to go 1 to 30. The number one pick belongs to John Gonzalez. The number two pick belongs to Yossi Goslin. Number three pick is mine, and we will continue in that fashion until we have gone through 30 picks. So, with all of that said, John Gonzalez, the floor is yours. Who is the number one pick in the start of franchise draft?
Yeah, first, thank you for giving me the first pick. This was nice of you guys. I feel like it's an honor. This is really hard to screw up, which is why I think you put me first. So because you're like, well, he couldn't possibly screw this up. It's got to be Wemby, right? I mean, I'll take Wemby number one. He's only 21 years old. He doesn't turn 22 for a few months. Last year, he played in only 46 games, still led the league with 176 blocks, which is outrageous. It was 28 more than Brook Lopez, who finished second, had. And Brook Lopez he played in 80 games. So, I mean, that kid was on an absolute glide path to winning Defensive Player of the Year. And I think if he clears the 65 game threshold this season, next season, the year after, just pencil him in. I mean, I think it's going to get to the point where, like, you might as well just rename the award for him. And then also, last year on the other podcast, RIP to Beyond the Arc that we did together, Sam. But Yossi, you may or may not know this. So Brad Bodkin, our co-worker at CBS Sports, he was like, there's a point in the season where he was like a little annoyed by Wemby's shot diet. Like he wasn't cool with Wemby. I think I have to go back and look at the numbers, but Wemby averaged like 8 and change 3-point attempts last year. I think it was almost approaching 9. And that kind of annoyed Brad. And for me, it was like, well, this kid's only 21 years old. He's scratching the surface of what he can do. Now's the time to figure it out. Remember that scene in Jurassic Park where the Raptors are kind of testing the fence for weaknesses. That's how I think about Wemby last year. He was just figuring it out. And when he figures out where the weakness in the fence is and which part is electrified and what isn't, like the rest of the league is screwed and they might already be. So it's Wemby.
John, I didn't give you the number one pick thinking you were going to pick Wemby. I was hoping you'd take Reed Shepherd, so I wasn't faced with that dilemma at number 3. Yossi, I'll pose this to you. I think we all assumed Wemby was going to be the number one pick. I had no objections. I would have taken him number 1 as well. I'm trying to think of how many second-year players, if you did this exercise over, say, the last 20, 25 years, you would ever take over Wemby. And is it just like 2005 LeBron James? Like, I think I'd take Wemby over second-year Kevin Durant. I think I'd take Wemby over second-year Anthony Davis. That's kind of the company here. I guess the injury risk is the only concern, but we're not saying it's an injury risk because he's had injuries. We're saying an injury risk because he's so tall. I don't like Yossi. Is there anything that would have dissuaded you? Do you think, like, other than LeBron, is there anybody at this point in their career you take over him?
Maybe you could make a case for like early Shaq, because even at that time, I think there's like, I mean, we were babies at the time, but I would imagine that it's different. The Wemby outlook is different because he could do so many other different things. But in terms of just a pure dominant force, I think people knew he was going to be unstoppable, and he kind of proved that. You just would have hoped Shaq would have had like a slightly longer prime, but I think there's a pretty good case for prime Shaq. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, yeah, it's like Magic, Larry, the guys who came onto the scene right away and like were in their early 20s and were already MVP candidates. It's a very, very short list. So I don't think there was ever going to be any dissension about Wemby as the number 1 pick. So Yossi, I think the draft kind of starts with you at number 2.
Yeah.
I have an inkling of who you're going to take, but I think there is a debate here. So who are you taking number 2?
So now it's Wemby's in his own tier, and I think these next 3 to 4 guys are like kind of their own tier too, and they vary in age. So I think it's mostly as long as I'm getting 2 of these next 4 guys, which I'm guaranteed to get, I guess I'm safe. But I suppose, and I still really haven't fully decided. Like I have my ranking. I'm kind of like tied with who I want to take for number 2. I'm probably gonna go with Cooper. Cooper Flag.
I was planning to take him 6, and I thought that was a surprise.
No, I don't think that's a big. I mean, I just think right now, as far as pure potential, which again, like we haven't even seen him play, so this is just really just based because we haven't seen him play. We could only think right now like so positively. If I didn't take him second, I was going to take him 4th, and I'm pretty happy with who I could probably get with my next pick. I don't know. So why do you think he shouldn't be this high?
Yossi, every single MVP in NBA history is still on the board right now, like all of them, including now. You are getting more time with Cooper because he's 18, but you are getting some uncertainty there in that we've never seen him play an NBA game. I probably this is if I were doing this draft 2 years ago when Wembanyama was a rookie, I don't think I would have even taken him number 2 just because of the uncertainty involved. John, where are you at with Cooper Flag at number 2?
Yeah, I had him 5 on my board. I think like the biggest thing, I mean, as Yossi said, I mean, we haven't really seen him play, right? It's all projection for him, but he's 18 years old. Do you remember what you were doing at 18? I mean, like 3 years from now, he'll be Wemby's age, right? And he'll have 3 years under his belt. And like the upside and the projection for this kid is pretty high. So I don't hate it here.
Yeah.
I think like what you're doing is just factoring in like what figures to be absent significant injury, a really long career.
Yeah.
What was I doing?
It's mainly about time for me. In the end, he's just so young. So that's the big advantage where like the next guy I'm hoping to get is probably 6 years older. If we did this 2 years ago, I'd probably still would have taken Wemby based on what we've seen, just the age factor. That's the biggest part in all of this.
So this this is the other benefit you get drafting Cooper Flag. We are building a franchise. You get 4 years of rookie contract money.
Yeah.
Now, we're not building out entire rosters, but if you're starting a franchise from scratch, you want to have avenues to bringing in your next star, whoever that is. Now you have that because you have 4 cheap years for Cooper Flag. You're talking me into this a little bit. I wouldn't have taken him at 2, but I'm now at peace with the idea that I was never going to get him at 6. It seems like both of you guys
now
were going
let me
to
say,
take
like,
him there.
if this were like maybe we had 5 people drafting plus, okay, maybe I wouldn't take Cooper number 2. This is more, it's very strategic where we're like 3 teams drafting players. So that also factors into that.
Now, you have really messed up my draft board with this because I was assuming there was a clear tier of 2 and 3. You were going to take one and I was going to take the other. You have now left me the 2 best players in the NBA by most estimations. It's a very, very tough call. I think I'm ultimately going to use the number 3 pick to take the 4 extra years of security and draft Shai Gilgeous-Alexander number 3. I'm shocked that I'm doing it because I've been at the front of the let's not crown SGA brigade thus far. Like, Jokic is still very clearly the best player in the NBA, but he's 4 years older. You know, he is, I think he's making a little bit more in his current Supermax. Yossi, you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? He's on the 35%, and SGA's 35% doesn't start for a couple of years.
Yeah, SGA had basically tied with Cooper, and then I just went with age on that one. But as far as money, yes, SGA's got 2 more years making 40 mil a year, if that's important to you, and then he's going to make like, 60, 70 afterward.
Yeah, oh, John, you have the next pick, so I've now made your life a little bit easier. You don't have to actually make this decision, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you have gone SGA or Jokic, or would you have gone with another player? You do have the next pick. You can go with anybody.
Well, yeah. So SGA was in the running. We'll discuss Joker in a second. Luka made, before getting traded to Los Angeles, 5 straight first team All NBA selections. He's only 26 years old, so he's 4 years younger than Joker, and that's definitely factored in. Then there's 2 other guys who are only 24 years old in Ant and Cade. So, like, how do you weigh those 2 guys having being 6 years younger than Joker? Like, that's not insignificant, and it is something that makes me like really pause here. But ultimately, I'm just going to go with top line talent. I think we've almost, Sam, for CBS, next week we've got, our awards predictions and where we think the standings are going to come out. And like as I was like thinking it through and writing it, I think we've now, despite the fact that Joker didn't win MVP last year and he's only won 3 of the last 5, I think we've pretty much reached a point where it's like universal opinion is the best player in the world is Nikola Jokic. So yes, he's older than SGA. Yes, he's 4 years older than Luka. He's 6 years older than the other 2 guys that I mentioned. Give me whatever's left to Joker. Like, I just also, on top of that, like on top of him just being the best player in the world, and like the NBA.com GM survey that just like feted him as the best passer, as the highest basketball IQ. Like, isn't he just a delight to watch? That somebody that size who moves that, like, I'm not gonna say slowly, but he's not exactly swift and svelte, is just like such a brilliant player and passer and thinker on the court. I just love him. Give me Joker.
Yeah, age manifests in different ways for different players. Jokic never gets hurt. You don't figure that he's going to decline at any sort of early age.
He's always available. He always plays.
He's always available, and his game isn't really athletically based. There's another similarly accomplished player on the board who is the same age that I suspect is going to last a little bit longer on the draft board. Jokic feels pretty safe. Like, a lot of these guys in this range are younger, but they don't come with that certainty that drafting them kind of guarantees you're going to be a 50-win team in the way that it does with Jokic, right? I mean, he, without Murray and without Porter, led the Nuggets to 50-something. It was 49 or 50 wins, won MVP. I don't know that there's another player in the league right now that gives you that guarantee. You're just hoping that he ages well, but I think that's a reasonable bet. Yossi, did you have any doubts about Jokic at number 4? You are the guy who took Cooper Flag at 18. Yeah. So are you so youth obsessed that you weren't going to do that?
No. Jokic and like some of these other players that John just mentioned, they're basically like in my same tier. So yeah, he was going to come up for me. I'll say this. I don't think age is really that big a factor if you're worried about taking him this early, because he's an all-time great. We're seeing now for the truest all-time greats, LeBron, KD, Curry, they're extending their primes well into their late 30s, into their early 40s. I feel pretty safe that Jokic is going to remain playing at this level probably into his late 30s and early 40s. So he's already year 10. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, he's still like a top 25-ish player 10 years from now. So I don't think there's anything wrong with taking him at this high. Again, but we're just kind of talking like a 12-year difference though between like Jokic and Cooper. Why I still went Cooper at this as high as I did, but where Jokic is right now, I think that's a fine pick.
Jokic, first of all, this has to be the only internet basketball draft in 2025 that did not have Nikola Jokic going in the first round. It's kind of amazing that we concocted an experiment that produced such an outcome. Now, that being said, it's ironic. I think your biggest fear with Jokic isn't age or injury. It's retirement to go hang out with his horses in Serbia, which is insane. And I don't know that anything like that has ever been true of another NBA player. Like, I'm trying to think of I guess Michael Jordan to play baseball, but that wasn't something people were actively worried about. And I'm not especially worried about Jokic and his horses. It makes total sense. I think you could have argued Jokic as high as number 2 because he's the only guy where if you have him on your team, you're guaranteed a certain baseline of competitiveness. Whereas everybody else, like Wembanyama was on a lottery team last year. SGA, I mean, he wasn't an MVP caliber guy a few years ago. He was in the play-in 2 years ago. Everybody else, they are reliant on team to some extent. Jokic is at the highest levels, but he's going to get you to like a good first round, maybe the second round, no matter who else you have. Jokic off of the board. Yossi, number 5 pick is yours.
Okay. So we went Wemby, Cooper, SGA, Jokic just went. So there's 2 guys I'm looking at, and I'm pretty sure they're both going to be taken over this next round. I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards. And it was basically decided between him and Luka. Edwards a little younger, but that's not really what I'm looking at. When deciding between those 2, I'm just a little worried about the Mavs' prognosis on Luka. They probably went overboard with their decision. I'm sure a lot of it had to do with like personal tension, that sort of stuff. But I'm sure there is some truth to whatever fears they have about his long-term projection, where even though, yes, Luka finally got into great shape, I'm sure he's going to be in the MVP conversation. That was just kind of what like put Edwards over the edge for me. I think they'll both win an MVP within the next 6-7 years. So yeah, and I think Edwards could honestly, like, he is a franchise guy. I think he's like a number one of a top one guys. I could see him leading the Wolves to a championship. I know you and me and Sam, every time we always go into the season a little like lower on the Wolves, despite them going to back-to-back conference finals. But for the first time, I'm a little higher on them. And I feel like this could really be the year Edwards, maybe gets into like top 3 conversation.
So what's interesting about this debate specifically is that we do know that the Mavericks called the Timberwolves last February or January and said, hey, would you trade Anthony Edwards? We don't know if they specifically said for Luka, but in any event, the Timberwolves just gave them a blanket no, indicating that Minnesota would not have made that trade, saying that they would prefer to have Anthony Edwards. I know it's much more complicated in real life. John, where would you have landed on Ant versus Luka?
Yeah, he was on my list of this next round here, the tier that I would go for. It was going to be one of those 2 guys or 3 guys if you want to throw Cade in there. But for Ant, I mean, what we just talked about with Joker always being available and always playing, like, I know that it's such a cliche to say that the best ability is availability, but like, if your guy is out there playing and he's of the caliber of an Ant Edwards, then that really is like a huge boost to your team, right? I mean, as Yossi mentioned, they went to back-to-back conference finals. Now they didn't get over the hump, but like you had to, just to have a chance to win a championship, you have to go that far, and to go that far, you have to have your main guy dressed and ready to rock. And Ant is always out there, so I love that pick.
I think with Ant versus Luca, they are both players who have maybe not a distinct weakness. Yes, in Luca's case. In Ant's case, it's more of a we'll see how he develops sort of thing. But they do both have an area in which they probably need roster support. For Luca, it's obviously defense. When he had a great defense in 2024, they made the NBA Finals. In 2022, they made the West Finals. When the defense hasn't been there, it's been a lot harder for him. But he is like an all-in-one heliocentric offensive player where he's not only one of the best scorers in the NBA, but one of the best passers as well. For Ant, it's different. Ant is a very, very good defender. He's not quite there as a playmaker yet. I am pretty optimistic that he'll get there. I saw some stuff in the playoffs last year that made me believe he started to take some steps. I also just think he's added new things to his game every year that he's been in the NBA, you know, whether it was the defense a few years ago, the 3-point shooting last year where he was, I think he made the most total threes in the NBA, or he came very, very close.
He did.
So I believe that Ant will eventually add the playmaking. I'm less certain about Luka when it comes to the defense. He's in great shape right now. That is a fair concern. I'm very glad that I didn't have to make this decision. I think in the end, I ultimately might have leaned Edwards by the tiniest of margins, but I don't have to make that decision. I'm picking at number 6 and is off the board, and my pick is Luka Doncic. Now, I think there's a world in which Luka rather has his skinny Luka year and he wins MVP. And at the trade deadline, they're very excited about, you know, what they have with LeBron and Reeves and everything else there. And they say, you know what, let's go all in. And they make a deep playoff run. And maybe when we do this exercise next year, he jumps up to second. Now, Wembanyama presumably is going to have the number 1 slot locked up for the foreseeable future. But I do find it interesting that when Luka and SGA played in a playoff series in 2024, I think we all pretty much came out of that series thinking Luka is the better player. And then a year later, SGA, and obviously the perfect team circumstances, ends up winning a title, whereas Luka has one of the crazier years I can ever remember, getting traded in the dead of night. I wonder if we're letting those circumstances and all of the fallout from the trade affect our perception of him a little bit. Because I think if we would have done this draft a year ago, there's just no world in which Luka would have fallen to number 6. So I'll pose this to you guys. Say hypothetically we had done this a year ago. Yossi, where would you have taken Luka? Would you have taken him like 2nd, 3rd?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely in the top 5 because there's no Cooper to select from.
And Ants has ascended in that time too.
Yeah, I'd probably would have taken Luke over Edwards. Yeah, so yeah, he'd probably go 3rd at the latest. Maybe, and then SGA. Yeah, it'd be pretty tied there with SGA. I'd have to think about that one.
Yeah,
Luka, I would have taken him. Yeah, John, go ahead.
No, Luka, a year younger, coming off of last year, what would have been a trip to the finals where, you know, they clearly weren't as good as the Celtics, but still. Now, and, you know, his defense was not exactly fantastic there, but I love Luka, 26 and a half years old. And like now with his new revenge body, like let him cook. I'm excited for this season for him.
I think there's absolutely a world in which they trade for a superstar at like 60 cents on the dollar, like the Lakers always do. And 2 years from now, Luka's hoisting the trophy in LA with a star sidekick and an owner that's willing to spend money. And JJ is the hotshot young coach. And we're all just looking around saying, well, damn, I guess the Luka era is about to start. Now, we could also be headed into the Thunder Dynasty era, or Wemby could come along, or any number of a million other things could happen. I'm just saying it seems a little odd to me compared to what we thought, even at the deadline when we were that outraged about the trade, that he would fall all the way to 6. But we're now at number 7. John, you've hinted at who you plan to take here. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I agree with it. So who is your pick at number 7?
Yeah, it's Cade for me. He's 24. right? I mean, like we talk about like the last American to win the MVP was what, James Harden, right? Like 2018, something like that. If you were going to look for somebody from the States who was potentially going to win MVP, it would be Ant, and then it would be Cade, right? And like he made his first All NBA team last year. Sam, you and I have talked about this as well. I love him so much. I mean, like look at the way that they leveled up last year, and it has everything to do with him like really coming into his own, where they triple their win total, first team in NBA history to pull that off. The kid's only 24 years old. And like, I think about him as, and maybe this is being hyperbolic, but I don't think by that much. I think about him as like bigger bodied SGA. They're about the same height, but he's got like 25, 30 pounds on SGA. Like you're thicker and you move that quickly and you can do all these things on the court and you're 24 years old, which puts you 3 years and change younger than SGA. I'm not saying that he's going to win an MVP anytime soon or that the Pistons were going to transform themselves in the same way that Oklahoma City did into a championship team. But man, is he good. So yeah, I mean, give me I'll take a shot with him. No problem.
There are a couple of things that I really love about Cade. The first is I really love when a number one overall pick kind of prospect goes to a team with the defense first culture and fully buys into it. Now, it took the Pistons several years to get there, right? But I think there are guys who have the ball as much as Cade does who would look at defense as like a chore for the role players to do. That is emphatically not how Cade approaches this. I love the size. I think you're right. Being bigger, I think, is going to help. It's going to help him because he has to get to the basket so much. The spacing there is kind of a mess, so he does have to finish through traffic all the time. That's another component of him that I'm really excited about. The spacing there has kind of been messy for his entire career. Last year was the best that he's ever had. If he ever finds himself on a team with proper 5-out spacing or even like a shooting, like a non-shooting center and like otherwise the shooting around him is sound, I'd feel even better about him. There's another player in this vein that I want to talk about a little bit later. Yossi, you brought up Ant and Luka as future MVPs. Do you see Cade as a possible future MVP?
I don't know yet. I think if he can replicate last season or build up, like at least replicate it, but definitely build up upon it, then probably. I think I need to see just like the consistency a little more.
I mean, the impediment is Wemby, right? Like, how do you get through that? Like, I mean, he's going to be a problem for all these awards, but yeah.
Well, he'll sprain his ankle some years. We do have the 65 game rule for a reason. Like,
Yeah.
I think defensive player of the year is really going to be an automatic. If he plays 65, he'll win 9, 10, 11 of those. MVP, I mean, we thought LeBron would win 7 or 8. Jordan should have probably won 7 or 8. We do get bored with MVP a lot. So I do think there will be off years where somebody other than Wemby wins because that's how this award tends to go. Like Kareem is the max at 6. I think guys tend to top out at 4 or 5. So I do think there will be years where it's possible. But Yossi, you were not as high on Cade as John and I were. You now have the number 8 pick. Who are you taking?
I would have taken Cade 6.
You would have taken. Okay, so then I apologize.
Yeah. No. I just meant like as far as like him being like a Luka SGA MVP caliber guy. I don't know that yet. That's all I meant.
Okay, so now you have the number 8 pick. You would have taken Cade over this player. I have 2 players that I'm like kind of eyeing. I'm hoping you'll take one of them off the board for me. Who are you taking here?
Now it's really hard.
This is the slot. It gets very difficult.
There's a huge drop off. So if Tatum didn't tear his Achilles, I'd probably take him here. And there's like several players that I'd be pretty happy with over like this next turn. I think, and this might be kind of a reach. I'm gonna go with Amin Thompson here.
He was.
I thought he was coming back to me for sure.
He was number 10 on my board. I have 2 guys that I would have taken ahead of him. But explain it. Like
he was 9 for me.
So Yossi, explain your rationale here. Like, what do you see as his offensive ceiling if you're taking him at number 8 in this draft?
So when looking at, first of all, defensively, when looking at some of the other guys that he's probably, in the same tier in, like guys like Paolo, who else we got? Like I love the defense. I think he's going to be perennial all defense. Offensive ceiling, I mean, I'm trying to think who a comparison might be. I'm not expecting him to even without factoring in, like, okay, you probably hope he's going to get to at least low to mid 30 3-point percentage, which he's never done. Even without that, if he can be elite at getting to the paint, finishing, uh, we know he's a pretty good passer. If he can, we'll see this year just how good he could be as a facilitator. Like it feels like to me he can be like a mini Giannis, if that makes sense.
I was
That's like
about
the
to throw it to John because John has made that exact comparison to me.
that's the high end, like, reasonable scenario I'm hoping for offensively. If he can develop a reliable 3-point shot, then he might make a case for being even higher on this in this ranking. So I think he's gonna start to make a case potentially as early as this year for like third team All NBA. I'm very high on him.
Look, I love that pick. He's probably my favorite player to watch in the NBA. I'm bummed that I didn't get him. I thought he was coming back to me. Look, we have talked about, like, it was a brutal blow for Houston to lose Fred VanVleet, but maybe in a weird way, it might move them further down the line. If not this season, then next season, by just making, like, hey, out of necessity, Amin Thompson, here's the ball. I can't wait to see what that looks like. Yes, the shot is a problem, but he can influence the game in so many other ways. I mean, there's nothing aside from shooting from three, which is obviously an important part of today's game. There's nothing else on the floor he can't do. And when you hear guys like LeBron and Steve Kerr and De'Aaron Fox gush about his athleticism and say that not only is he like the best athlete in the NBA, and a league that's full of athletes, right? Like amazing athletes in the NBA. These guys are looking at him and going, no. He's completely different and even more special than everybody else by a significant margin. I can't wait to see what he does this season.
He, to me, is one of the 3 best athletes I have ever seen in the NBA. I'm not counting guys who I wasn't like around for. I can't compare him to Wilt. I started watching basketball late 90s, early 2000s, and to me, the list is LeBron, Russell Westbrook, and then the Thompson twins, obviously. He is, even if the shot never comes, I think he's going to be eventually an all-star level offensive player. And Fred being out, the other thing aside from the shot that I think he needs to work on is his handle. Like, literally, I don't think it's quite as tight as it needs to be. And just having a lot of reps where he is dribbling the ball up the court and running a pick and roll is going to be very, very useful for him. Kevin Durant is the perfect teammate to have for a player under these circumstances because he's somebody who's not going to run 40 pick and rolls a game. He's not going to make Amin stand around and watch. He's going to be kind of a security blanket on that offense where with 10 seconds left, with 8 seconds left on the clock, oh, we don't have it on this time down the floor. Let's throw it to Kevin and Kevin will figure it out. He's a security blanket, and that's very, very useful. I'm very jealous of the boldness of taking Amin at number 8. I wasn't going to do it, but I think there's a world where we do this draft next year and like, wow, Amin is number 5 because he was just an all-star. He developed so much in that year without Fred VanVleet. We have the first rocket off of the board. I am very curious to see how many total rockets we have. There is another rocket I was considering a little bit in this slot. I ultimately decided to go in a slightly different direction at number 9. I'm looking at roster building a little bit more holistically. I think primary ball handlers outside of the guys who've already been taken, like, of course you take a Luka, of course you take, an SGA, the guys like that. Those are the most valuable players in the league. But outside of that tier of guy, primary ball handlers are easy enough to find, right? Like, you can always find like a Trae Young or a Darius Garland or Ja Morant. Point guards in that tier tend to be pretty available, pretty gettable. The guys that you don't have, the guys that teams really, really want, are wings that do everything. So I'm going to take Jalen Williams at number 9, thinking I have found the single hardest thing to find when building a roster. Is he going to be my primary scorer, my primary, pick and roll guy down the floor every single time? Probably not. I'm probably going to have a high usage point guard on my team, but I'm going to check every other box by taking Jalen Williams here. Now, John, I know you're a huge Jalen Williams fan. Like, was this the right range or did I reach a little bit here?
No, I was going one of the 2 remaining Oklahoma City Thunder. So yeah, Jalen Williams going to you makes complete sense. I mean, look at the season that he had last year. He's 24 and a half years old. He made his first All-Star, his first All Defense, and his first All NBA, and they won a championship. And like he proved to I think a lot of skeptics, or some skeptics, I don't know how many skeptics he actually had, but some, however many doubters he had, he proved to them that he could be like a viable number 2 option alongside the MVP and SGA. So yeah, I love him.
Yossi, I feel like this is a very you pick in that you're somebody who, like me, is very thoughtful about what are the things that are easy to get and what are the things that are hard to get. Do you have any objections? Because I feel like you're going to be on board with me here.
No, I don't think there's any problem with that. I think Jalen still has a couple more levels to go, and I do wonder. This will be interesting once we get to a certain player. Um, like I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering like why hasn't Paolo been taken. I think I probably would have done Jalen as well. I have no problem with this pick. I like it.
There's another player that I can't wait to get drafted because that's going to be the most interesting. Why did he last this long conversation? So we've now made it through 3 rounds. We're at the top of the 4th round, number 10 overall pick. John, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm going the other way. The other Thunder player. I'll take Chet. He's 23 and a half. If not for the fact that Wemby exists, that's the guy that I'd be looking at to win multiple defensive player of the years. Last year was a little uneven for him offensively in the postseason. There were fits and starts for him, but they're so loaded that like that papers over a lot of sometimes like deficiencies, or sometimes, if your game isn't completely on. I just think, coming back from an injury, he maybe wasn't at his best. I think a full season of Chet Holmgren is really going to open a lot of people's eyes. Now, again, you've got Jalen Williams there and you've got SGA, so he doesn't get to really spread his wings as much as he potentially could. But the combination of his age, his two-way ability, with the fact that he can protect the rim and also spread the floor and knock down shots from deep, I just think he's so talented, and like some of it gets overshadowed because of the guys that he plays with. So I would be happy to start a franchise with Chet Holmgren.
The obvious fear is that he has missed more regular season games in his career than he has played in. Injuries, just given a guy of that size, are always going to be a factor. Yossi, was this the range, or did you have him a little bit lower? I had him at 15 for that reason.
Whoa, I had Chet like 7th. I had him really high. I'm with John there. I and I have more stuff to say. Like, so I think Chet and Jalen, some people listening wondering why they went this high. If you're surprised by that, it's just because they're in such a strong ecosystem that their stats aren't going to jump out. It's the same thing as with the Warriors with Clay and Draymond, and I think both these guys are better than Draymond, and it's very possible these guys end up being better than Clay. Where if you put Clay, like prime Clay, on the average team, he might have been their best player, put up close to 30 a game. And I think if you were to take Jalen and Chet, have them lead their own teams, or at least be like they would be, or at least they could be amazing number 2s offensively. They would jump out to have stats more like the guys that we have already selected. So when you're looking at can these guys function just as well elsewhere? I would think they might be better elsewhere, and maybe not so much. Like the Thunder ecosystem is just so strong, so it might be really hard to be as impactful as they are with the Thunder. But they can scale up and I think perform well if given a bigger role elsewhere.
So that's the big question aside from injuries. Like, John, what do you envision his offensive ceiling? Like, are you thinking he's going to be somebody that taking 6 or 7 threes per game and making almost 40%? Are you envisioning more of an on-ball role for him? Like, what are you seeing offensively that makes you pick him at number 10?
Yeah, I mean, all of the abilities that you would want in a stretch. Yes, you're right about him missing games, although a lot of him missing more games than he's played in is missing that first season entirely, right? So it's kind of pretty heavily weighted. But what Yossi was saying about the fact that like there's an ecosystem and a way to play in Oklahoma City, and they're so loaded that his counting stats aren't going to pop in the same way that they would if he played on another team. Like if he played in Orlando and that was his team and not Paolo's team, what would his stats look like? So I just think like all the skills are there. It's just that they don't need him to have, when you're talking, Sam, about his offensive load and his offensive output, I don't see any deficiencies in his offensive game that make me worried at all. In fact, it's almost like having a governor on your speed limit, right? Like when you play next to SGA and Jalen Williams and you have a team that's like 10 deep and Mark Dagnall can just like mix and match as he needs to, you don't need Chet Holmgren to be an offensive killer. I think he could be if you put him on a different team. And now that we're starting my own team, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't really have doubt about his offense. The doubt is from injuries. I'm more just curious where people think he's going to go offensively. I think he has a lot more on-ball juice to his game than the Thunder have been able to show.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something that'll come in the years to come. But for now, I mean, injuries are just the scary thing because he has already missed a full season and then like roughly half of last year's. All right, number 11. There is somebody, my number 8 player is on the board, so I'm curious if you'll take him.
I'm gonna take Evan Mobley, and it's
That's
not
my
really,
number 8 player.
And it's not so much a reaction to I want to get one of the better big defensive bigs available, which now that's kind of the last one left. But I would have taken Chet over him for what it's worth. I feel like defensively they're both pretty equal. I think Chet's offensively though, I trust Chet long term more. I trust the shot more. I think Mobley's been a slightly better passer, but not like significantly. But at the same time, I think Evan Mobley, I mean, he just won Defensive Player of the Year, partly because Wemby didn't play enough games, and I think a couple other guys kind of got hurt throughout, and they
including Chet.
And then the Cavs, I think it was mainly the Cavs had the best defense, so there was that going. But but he's still like a top 5-ish, 6-ish defender in the league, I think, at least. I think the offense still is going to continue getting better. He did take a big step up last year under Atkinson's system as a hub, and I'm excited. I do think eventually they are going to trade Jared Allen. Now with all the money adding up between Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, all making maxes, I don't think it's going to make as much sense to pay Jared Allen. He's got that extension about to kick in where he's going to make $30 million a year. I don't think that makes sense for the Cavs when he's not really closing anymore in high leverage games. So I'm really excited to see Mobley's offense evolve as he slowly starts to become more of a full-time center. So I could, as far as like where he stacks with some of the guys that went above, it's possible in a year or two. Maybe he's like 5th. I could see him being that high.
Yeah, I think he's very clearly ready to be a full-time center, but I also think he got a lot of value out of being a power forward first. I think it forced him as a driver, especially, to learn how to navigate tighter spaces near the basket. And I think he, as a driver last year, really, really grew to the point where, like, last year, Cleveland's offense was very, very egalitarian. It was not just your turn, my turn with Mitchell and Garland. Mobley had the ball basically as much as they did. Now, we haven't really seen him do as much as a roller as typically a young big in that vein would, but that's because he's playing power forward. We have seen him grow a lot as a passer. His lobs to Jared Allen are some of the coolest passes in the NBA. He's a safer injury bet than Chet is. I think he's a little bit more versatile defensively than Chet is. I think Chet is a better rim protector, and I think Mobley is a little bit better on the perimeter. So, John, obviously you took Chet over Mobley. Was this close to you?
Yeah, Mobley was my next guy. So like either of these guys I would have been happy with for all the reasons that Yossi and you just outlined. They're both really, really good players. Chet is slightly younger, like not quite a full year younger, but either one of these guys you'd be thrilled to have to build a team around because as you mentioned, like they're both so versatile. And Evan Mobley, yes, it was a non-Wemby year, and yes, Chet Holmgren got hurt, but he does have DPOY capability. Obviously, he won the award, and I think that he's going to be a mainstay on the all-defense team for a long time coming. Plus, his offensive capability, yeah, there's nothing to dislike about Evan Mobley.
We have reached, in my opinion, the single hardest pick of the draft so far. There is a very, very glaring name that we have not drafted yet.
Yes.
And I suspect will be picked in the very near future. But I also have 3 players who are range from slightly younger to substantially younger that I'm seriously considering. I'm going to go off of my draft board and just go with my gut here. And I'm going to take Paolo Banchero at number 12. Here is my logic. I think people get a little dismissive of who Paolo has been on offense so far in his career. You know, whether it's the shot diet of like not a great 3-point shooter, too many mid-range jumpers, things like that. I would just remind people he is playing in one of the worst, or at least so far, one of the worst offensive ecosystems in all of basketball, where his co-star offensively, Franz Wagner, is kind of a non-shooter right now, or at least has been the last couple of years. His point guard, Jalen Suggs, is a very up and down shooter. They play with centers who kind of shoot, but don't really like they're not playing with, you know, somebody who's a very, very consistent shooting center at a high volume. He has no space, and yet he's still been this good offensively. I brought this up with Cade. I love number one picks. I love highly touted prospects who maybe weren't drafted with the assumption that they were going to be great defenders, who at the very least really buy into a defensive culture and say, I might not be a stopper, but I'm going to make sure that as the star of this team, everyone below me is accountable. If I work hard on defense, everybody else has to, and he has. This was a very, very tough pick. I considered 3 other players. We'll see if those wind up being the next 3 players. He is the youngest of the 4 players I seriously considered at 22. I think he has the most room to gain just based on who has been around him. Yossi, Banchero, fair or foul?
No, I think it's fair. I was going to bring up the point that, yes, I do think he is hurt by playing in this Orlando system where you've got it's just too much size all around. And, the other thing I wanted to talk about as part of the Chet debate, but I wanted to wait till Paolo got selected, is I think Chet Holmgren is still exactly what the Magic need right now. They need like a true floor spacing big on offense to really open things up. And I've since like around Chet's debut a couple of years ago, last year, I felt that despite the injuries, I think I would still have taken Chet number 1 if I'm the Magic. But you're right that if they can put more shooting and spacing around Paolo, then we probably wouldn't ding him as much. But at the same time, I do wonder like how high of a ceiling he has compared to some of these other guys. When he's not like I don't like how is he defend? Is he like can he be an all defense level player, or I don't. It doesn't seem like he'll like get to like that level defensively.
It's tight. It's tight, right? Because there's only 2 teams. Like if there was
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's tight. I mean, like that team is also so good defensively that if he doesn't have to do as much as maybe you would have to do in order to make one of those 2 teams. But he's also 20. He's only 22. It's outrageous. Right. He doesn't turn 23 for a couple more months.
My fears, I'm not sure if he can be so dominant in in a couple certain aspects where some of these guys like that we've already went through, we know that they are like one of the best in certain attributes. I'm not saying he can't get there, but I'm not sure what it is that like sticks out as like he's top 5 in this, top 5 in that. I don't know. Any disagreements with that?
So I think that's a very interesting point to bring up because I mean the guy who that sounds like is Jason Tatum, right? Where Jason Tatum's selling point was he is like a B+ or better at everything, and in some areas he's a good deal better than a B+. But there was no one area where you looked at Jason Tatum and you're like, is he the best scorer in the league? No, he's top 5 area. But like, is he ever the best scorer in the league? No. Is he the best playmaker, best defender? No. But he's very, very good at everything. That opens up a lot of doors. Paolo doesn't have the shooting that Tatum does, but it's an interesting idea that I hadn't really given much thought to. That 2022 draft is also just a very interesting point. I'll pose this to you, John, as the Chet guy. Do you think if Orlando had known what Franz Wagner was going to become as an on-ball scorer and creator, they would have redone that pick and taken Chet instead?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like it's hard to fault them because they do. He's such a big body, and he does. If you're gonna go comps, Jason Tatum is a good one. I don't fault them for it. I personally, if I could redo it, I would take Chet. But I don't think that. Yeah, especially with the pairing with Franz Wagner. Yeah, maybe you rethink it. But also, again, he's 22 years old, not 23 for a couple more months. He's massive. He's got time to grow into all this. And then like offensively, he can do a lot of things that are like B plus. So yeah, I wouldn't fault him for that.
John, the floor is yours for pick number 13. Are you going to take the very obvious name, or is he going to keep falling?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to go with Giannis. I've been taking like when I was evaluating this and thinking about this exercise and that you guys asked me to do, I really, with the exception of Joker, who is the best player in the world, heavily weighted this towards age, just because the more years that you can get out of these guys, the better. But at some point, you have to. Giannis is the same age as Joker, and I think that he probably projects to play longer than Joker. Joker could play longer if he wanted to. He's got that really fun YMCA dad bod game. But I think that you're right, Sam, in what you were talking about. Like the threat isn't that Joker won't be like healthy enough or able to play. It's that he wants to go off and play with his horses in Serbia, right? So I think like this is one of those things where you go, Giannis is just that good. However many years he has left, whether it's 8 or 10 years or potentially even more, because guys take care of their bodies better now. Just give me whatever's left of Giannis.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who are listening to this and saying, how does Giannis Antetokounmpo fall to 13? I'll give my version of it too. It's not just the age in itself. It's the playing style. It's the injuries. He misses 10 or 15 games every single year. His game is so predicated on athleticism. What is he going to be as a player when he's 85% as athletic as he is today? Now, last year was very encouraging on this front. He was an awesome mid-range shooter last year. If that's something that persists, you feel a lot better about him moving forward, but the threes have never come. You also have to build such a specific kind of roster around him, right? Ever since the Bucks signed Brook Lopez, he has always had shooting centers. I think as his career progresses and presumably continues on another team in the somewhat near future, if they don't have a shooting center, he is probably going to have to play center. Is that something that he wants? Is that something he's okay with? How is that going to change roster construction around him? He is a high risk player to take anywhere in a draft like this. But that being said, it is a little bit like Jokic, where if you take Giannis and you don't screw things up around him as badly as the Bucks have, you're probably going to be in the championship conversation. So, Yossi, you didn't take Giannis either. I didn't, obviously. Where were you considering him? Was this the spot? Like, were you going to take him with the next pick?
Yeah, this was around the range, and I think probably would have taken him with my next pick. There isn't really, unless you guys can think of someone, I don't think there's really any comparison as far as a player with his with his physique and athleticism and how well he aged. Because when I was talking about Jokic, I said I could see him aging into his late, like continuing to play this well into his late 30s, early 40s, because he's an all-time great. Giannis is an all-time great, but as we know, his game relies almost entirely on his athleticism. I could see him evolving his game a little bit to not rely on it as much. But even without that, I think it's a good bet that he should remain this athletic pretty late into his career. And it's just a gamble. I'm not saying this based on anything scientific, but again, and I'm going to bring up Shaq again. I feel like one of the better comparisons for who Giannis is was like very, very early Shaq when he was in Orlando and in elite shape.
When he could run the floor.
Yeah, exactly. So, and like you could see the highlights of the way Shaq run. And if Giannis is an elite, like if maybe the best shape in the NBA. I don't know if there's a player with a better physique than him. So we know he's going to stay in shape. We can trust that. So as long as he does everything he's supposed to stay in this shape, and doesn't have any major injuries, why I could see maybe a possibility he's still like this for like another 6-7 years. And in that case, it's a worthy pick. At this stage.
We are potentially going to get like a real-time exam, not real-time, but like in the very near future, an examination of whether or not we were right with these placements. Because if Giannis becomes available in 6 months, we'll find out. would Houston offer Amen Thompson for Giannis? I think the answer is no, and therefore it makes sense that Amen would go above him. I don't think Orlando would trade Paolo for Giannis, even if they had assurances that he would stay. I think some of the guys coming up next, and one guy in particular, is somebody that I think absolutely could be in a Giannis trade. So we're kind of going to find out in the next 6 to 12 months just how much does the NBA really value Giannis as not just an individual player, but like a long-term build your team around him proposition. So Giannis is off the board. Yossi, you're up at number 14.
So this one might get a reaction out of Sam, maybe even John.
Oh, I can't wait.
I'm going to go with Tatum next.
I was going to do that too.
I like it.
Okay. All right. So I'm not too worried about his Achilles. If this was 5 years ago, before we saw how KD came out of his Achilles injury, I would have thought it's over. And we've just seen so many more players come back and have like extend their careers. There's an argument to be made that Kevin Durant maybe even extended his career because of the Achilles injury, taking as much time off as he did. So I'm not saying I'm not saying for sure Tatum's going to like have a longer career because of it, but I do think the time off, especially for a guy like Tatum, who's never missed the playoffs, always went, like, with the exception of 1 year, always at least advanced to the second round, plays a lot, very available. I think he could use a break. So I'm actually kind of excited to see how he comes back from this. I think statistically, he should probably be the same player. If anything, maybe this injury just kind of eliminates the possibility of him ascending from a B+ guy to being elite at something. But I think he's still going to continue to be maybe not first team all NBA, but like second team going forward. As I look at the rest of the guys, I don't know. I just feel like I trust whatever Tatum's going to have over the next 10 to 12 years than anybody else.
I think this is one of the last guys. We're running out of guys who, like, you could really plausibly say best player in a championship team, because he literally did it. I am bullish on what post-Achilles Tatum is going to look like. Speed was never the biggest part of his game. I think especially over the last couple of years, he started to lean more and more towards strength. He guarded centers a lot. I'm stealing this point from Nate Duncan, but I thought it was brilliant. He said this during the 2024 finals run. Anthony Davis has spent his entire career complaining about guarding centers, but Jason Tatum did it throughout an entire championship run and never said a word, which I really appreciate it. That's right. Jason Tatum is willing to do just about anything for the betterment of the team, and I really respect that. He will check any box. He will play any role. That being said, we got to chill with the he's going to be back in January or February stuff. Yeah. It drives me insane. There is nothing to gain by doing that. His team doesn't have a front court. What does he think is going to happen, right? They're not going to like go on a surprise playoff run, right? They don't have a center. They don't have a power forward unless it's him. I just don't think there's anything to be gained by doing that. And like, my feeling as an outside observer is that it's a little bit of that like Mamba mentality thing where he loved Kobe so much. And he's like, I am going to come back the absolute moment I could and maybe not take the long view on this. Yossi, I hope you as a GM are putting your foot down and saying you are not playing at all this season. And by the way, if we are thinking about this in a roster construction sense, if you do take Tatum and you sit him out for the whole year, you can build your roster around the idea of tanking, and then you'll have a good lottery pick coming up. So I do think there is a little bit of an extra benefit there of taking Tatum. I think he's mostly going to be the same guy when he comes back. I would be much, much more concerned if he were a guard who really relied on speed, which he just isn't. Maybe get a higher level guard to put around him. Like right now, the best guards on the team are Simons and Pritchard, who are like good offensive players, so I'd be happy to have on my team. I might want to have...
Whoa. Derek White erasure.
Oh, excuse me. In my head, I've traded Derek White so many times.
He's incredible.
Yossi and I have made the Derek White to Houston trade so many times.
Yeah.
That I've kind of forgotten. I've just sort of done that.
And we will continue to do so.
What I mean is they need like a primary ball handler type that I don't think Derek White really is, so that Tatum doesn't have to fill that role when he gets back. And Jaylen Brown obviously getting a little bit older. Like I would really like it if he had not a heliocentric guard, but like maybe like a borderline all-star point guard who has the ball more than Derek White does. That would make his transition coming back a little bit easier. But I think we're all in agreement, right, John, that we're pretty confident that Tatum is going to come back and mostly be himself.
Yeah, I think so. But the one caveat would be that, as we mentioned, guys who are always out there, right? Up until this injury, Jason Tatum always played. It was one of his best abilities. This whole thing about like, is he going to come back this season? Yossi was talking about KD. KD took 18 months. Like, what are we talking about with Jason? Like this whole smoke and fire thing with Jason Tatum coming back this season. He's 27 years old, 27 and a half years old. Yes, taking a gap year would put him into his age 28 season. I'd rather him do that and lose a full season of him and have him be healthy than come back too soon. So that's my one caveat. But yes, I think if he takes time and it's, like a proper healing period, because look, yes, the advancements in medicine and all and healing and, rehab and all that stuff is great. It's still an Achilles. And that's like the worst injury that you can have in the NBA outside of, I don't know, like breaking your leg, Paul George style, when he crashed into the stanchion. So take the full year and then come back next year.
We've reached the midpoint in the draft. We're running out of guys that are like in their early to mid 20s. Their prime is approaching. Soon we're going to have to start taking guys who are either a little bit older or a little bit younger. I am for now sticking with a 23-year-old. I considered him higher up. Who's excited about Eurobasket Alperen Şengün, who was getting the Jokic comps at Eurobasket?
Yes.
I wouldn't go that far. I'll say this. Last year, he got a lot of the breakout buzz because he finally like grew into a pretty good defender. He shot so badly at the rim last year in a way that was not really comparable to the rest of his career. 2 years ago, he was much, much better at the rim, and that was closer to what he's always been. He doesn't even really have to improve in my eyes. If he just pairs the defense that he had last year with the rim offense that he had 2 years ago, now we're like all NBA guy. He's there. And if the playmaking takes another leap, like we've talked about Amin having the ball in his hands a lot more without Fred VanVleet, they're going to have to run a lot more offense through Şengün as well. I think we could really be talking about a guy who's like second team All-NBA this year, bordering on first team. When I wrote my MVP odds breakdown, he's available at 300 to 1. I don't think he's going to win, but I think there's a world in which Houston wins like 55, 56 games, and he is the likeliest candidate on the team. Yossi, are you with me?
For some reason I didn't have him on my list. I think just bad prepping on my part. Because now I'm looking at my list. Yeah, I'd take Şengün over most of these guys. So that's all I've got to say on that.
Yeah, I mean, Şengün, 23 years. Sam, if you hadn't taken him, I was going to take him next. I mean, he's so good. And the Baby Joker comparisons didn't just come out of Eurobasket. This has been going on for a minute now. And I think it's maybe a little hyperbolic, but also like not that far removed. And when you're talking about his MVP odds, no, he's not going to win MVP. But just the conversation of like having that ability, right? Now, I do wonder about his usage rate alongside Kevin Durant and Amin Thompson this year, and like what kind of counting stats he's going to put up. But just in terms of his like overall skill set, especially offensively, and he is a really remarkable passer as well. And I don't think people quite realize that. I love him.
And now I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss anybody important.
While you're going over your list, the Rockets are now the second team to have 2 players drafted. I'm going to be very curious to see. The Thunder have 3, and I think they're going to be the only team. Well, I think the Rockets have an outside chance of having 3, but I'm not expecting it. I'm going to be curious to see how many teams ultimately have multiple players drafted. This, for me, was the end of my rookie contract, like year 3, year 4, year 5 range. Everybody else now comes with some other sort of red flag. So, John, this is one of the harder picks we've done so far.
Yes.
Who are you taking at number 16?
Yeah, this was sort of a dividing line for me where I was like, okay, everybody above this line was very clear. Everybody below this line, you can make a case for them. I'm going to make a case for my guy in a second, but there are some like caveats or hiccups or reservations that you might have with some of these guys. But for me, and this might surprise some people because I think like the casual NBA, although if you're listening to this podcast, I seriously doubt you're a casual NBA fan. Real ones know. I'm going to take Jalen Johnson. I mean, like a lot of people will look. Are you surprised or you
I love it.
Okay.
I was wasn't going to take him next, but I was going to
Yes.
take him like relatively soon.
Whenever we talk about the Hawks, forever and a day, the conversation has been about it being Trae Young's team. Well, we just found out today that Trae Young isn't going to get a new contract, and there's a reason for that. If you are the franchise player, this is not a conversation where you go, "Oh, I wonder if we should pay him." So, apologies to Trae Young, but the best player on that team is Jalen Johnson. He had a breakout season last year before he was injured. A lot of people missed it because they were looking around at different things, and there's a lot of shiny objects in the NBA, and you dangle something and you throw it. Sometimes we're golden retrievers. You throw a ball, we chase it. Jalen Johnson is a two-way monster. He can score at multiple levels. He can guard 1 through 4, 1 through 5 in a pinch. He's got a big body. He's athletic. He's fast. He's almost like, and he can shoot, by the way. Like when we talk about Amin Thompson and his athleticism and his body size, there's a lot of similarities and overlap there. Only Jalen Johnson rather is an efficient scorer. So I love that kid, and I think he's going to put a lot of people on notice this year. And all of a sudden, like a lot of people, I'm one of them, are high on the Atlanta Hawks and what they did this offseason. Well, the best move, look, they add Kristaps Porzingis, they bring in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they add Luke Kennard as a rotation shooter, they go and snag that draft pick from Joe Dumars, who's asleep at the wheel. The best thing that they did this offseason was just adding Jalen Johnson back into the mix.
Yossi, as the author of the first big surprise of this draft, how do you feel about the second?
Now, I'm in the tier where there's so many guys. I'm not even entirely sure who my next pick is going to be. So I think any selection's like as good as whatever I'm going to do next.
Thank you for the vote of confidence, Yossi.
No,
That's exactly what I was looking for.
No, just like, I think we're kind of shooting darts at a board at this point, to be honest. Yeah. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the big selling point, aside from how good a player he is the contract, right? Because a lot of the guys that we're now considering are on max deals or super max deals or are close to such contracts. You're getting Jalen Johnson. I don't know. Yossi, remind me, is it flat or is it $30 million going
flat?
Up?
It's flat.
Flat 30 a year.
Yep.
So you're getting a very good value contract. Obviously, injuries are a concern. The last 2 years was awesome in the first half of the year, and then injuries kind of ruined it. If he's healthy, I'm with you, John, that he's the best player on the team. Could the three-point shooting get better? Yeah, I hope it does. Even if it doesn't, though, I am just such a fan of his. He's so athletic. He's gotten so much craftier. He's been a most improved candidate 2 years in a row, which is kind of rare. You don't usually see that.
Yeah.
It's higher than I would have gone, but I think it's entirely justifiable.
23. He's 23 years old. I mean, he hasn't even really been out there long enough for us to know what he can really do.
Yossi, you're up at number 17. Who are you taking?
I guess I'm Team Achilles. I'm going to take Tyrese Halliburton.
There you go.
Again, I'm not worried about how he's going to be. I'm probably even less worried about him coming back. With Tyrese so far, though, the biggest issue is that coming back from an injury has derailed his game. So not only is he going to miss it this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has a really rough return the following year. But I think he will get back to being the Tyrese we know. I think he'll get back to the highs that we've just seen. Unlike Tatum, I think he could get better in some regards offensively still. I feel I'm not anticipating he will get even better, but I think he still had some room to grow after last year. So I think I trust Tyrese over just about everybody else on the board.
I am a little bit more concerned about Halliburton than I am Tatum for a few reasons. Number one, he is a guard. Having, speed and explosiveness. He obviously isn't the fastest, most explosive guard, but having as much of those things as possible is much more important in a point guard than it is in a small forward, power forward. There's also the fact that, John, as you pointed out, Tatum never missed time before tearing the Achilles. That wasn't the case for Halliburton, right? He had the lingering hamstring for all of that time. I wonder if this is going to be a situation where, you kind of have to worry about him and pace his minutes and rest him on back-to-backs kind of for the foreseeable future. I'm worried about the roster, frankly. Losing Miles Turner is pretty significant. Having a shooting center was so important to their playing style. I am a big Jay Huff believer, and I think Jay Huff is going to thrive in Indiana. Jay Huff is not Miles Turner. I don't know what kind of team Tyrese Halliburton is going to be returning to. John, where were you at with Halliburton? Was this the range, or were you going to get scared off by the Achilles?
No, he was next up on my board. I mean, like that run that we made a lot of this, but still, I thought it was really amazing that even though it was a very small sample size, that whole like overrated athletic piece, right? And then Tyrese Halliburton had one of the great individual performances in the postseason up to and including game 7, where he goes out there Willis Reed style and he's got like the calf injury, which we all know what could happen. And the worst did happen. And the calf ends up turning into an Achilles. I just thought he acquitted himself really well. He played out of his head during the postseason. It sucked to see him go down. It changed the fortunes, not just of his season for this year, but also for the Pacers moving forward, because it gave them an easy out to go, well, we can't pay Miles Turner, and like off we go. But yeah, I'm with Yossi. I mean, like, yeah, an Achilles is concerning, but he's only 25 years old. He'll be 26 when he comes back. Like, he's really talented, man. Yeah, I would have taken him right there.
And I'll just add, he's such a ceiling raiser. I think with the exception of the Bucks, if you look at the teams they went up against in each playoff series, I think all the teams they went up against had better roster. Like if you told me at the pick between the Pacers roster as it was last year versus the other teams that they went up against, I would probably go with all the teams who they went against: Cleveland, the Knicks, the Thunder. Even if you were to switch, for example, like, and for what like Tyrese does, he really makes everybody around him so much better. He makes that Pacers offense flow. Like you can argue that maybe Brunson is better than Tyrese Halliburton, but if you took out Halliburton and added Brunson, that Pacers offense I don't think is going to be nearly as good as Tyrese made it. So because of that, like, yeah, there is a lot of running involved in the offense, but in the playoff things slowed down a bit, and he showed he can still bring the Pacers offense to an elite level. So I think even if he's going to slow down a little bit, he's just so smart. I think he's going to continue to raise the Pacers offensive ceiling.
It's interesting that you bring up Brunson. I think both Brunson and Halliburton are very definitional players. Like they define the playing style you're going to use. But I think Brunson does it in a way that's a little bit limiting, where you kind of have to be a slower team that doesn't pass as much. And you can be lethally effective doing that. But I think that's ultimately the style you're going to play if you have Brunson. Whereas with Halliburton, it's kind of the opposite, where having him opens up this much faster pace, but he doesn't close other things off for you, right? If you paired him with another guard, now he was in Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox and it didn't work out. I would argue that says more about Sacramento than it does about De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Halliburton. I think you could pair Tyrese with a wider variety of other players than you probably could with Brunson, or frankly, most of the players that are left on this list. I considered Jalen Brunson very seriously for my next pick at number 18. In my heart, as a New Yorker, I feel like I should pick him. I think I'm going to throw in my first, I think, significant surprise thus far of the draft. I am going to take Dylan Harper at number 18 overall. I think in a normal draft, Dylan Harper is the number 1 pick with a bullet. I think he is a better prospect than anyone in 24, obviously, because that was a terrible draft. I think he is a better prospect than any of the 22 guys were. I like him more than I liked Paolo at the time. I like him more than I liked Chet at the time. I love a bigger scorer. I think he's going to be able to score on all 3 levels. He's very, very crafty. He has a lot of that Brunson in his game, but he's bigger and he's more athletic than Brunson. I think he'll eventually grow into, like, maybe not a great defender, but like a good passable one, especially in that San Antonio ecosystem where, like, you defend if you're a Spur. That's what happens. So I think this is obviously a risk. He's not the sure thing that Cooper Flagg is, but I also think him sharing a draft class with Cooper Flagg has underplayed what an incredible prospect that he is, because he's not like the generational LeBron Wembanyama level of draft prospect, but he's better than most number 1 picks to me. He just happened to land in a class with Flagg that happened to have a slightly better prospect. So Yossi, Dylan Harper, am I crazy? Is this appropriate?
I had him just under Tyrese Halliburton, so I think this is fine.
John, you strike me as a big Dylan Harper guy.
I don't know what to make of Dylan Harper because, as you know, Sam, I don't watch college basketball because who has the time? I spend all of my time on professional basketball, and when I'm not watching that, I'm watching soccer. So I trust you and Yossi here. He's only 19 years old. Like the people who I know who watch college basketball and watch this kid play, hype him up. So I'm excited to see him paired with Victor Wembanyama, my guy who I took #1 overall. But over the course of a season, yeah, it should be exciting. And again, like age timeline thing really matters here because now I'm up and I'm looking at like a bunch of guys in their mid 20s and I'm like not crazy about any of them. This is where I go like anybody that I pick from here on out, I'm going to go, man, I'm not crazy about it. So man, I'm not crazy about, I'm going to take Franz Wagner. He's 24. He's the #2 guy there. His numbers popped when Paolo Banchero went out, but Paolo Banchero is healthy and you need all those guys, all hands on deck if they want to level up this season in the Eastern Conference. You know, we'll see what happens with Jalen Suggs when he comes back. You mentioned earlier, Sam, like not really being a shooter. The hitch in the 3-pointer is a little concerning for me. That's part of why I'm going not crazy
You
about
have
it.
Markelle Fultz PTSD, don't you?
I do a little bit. Yeah, it's my Philly fatalism, but like I'm hoping that he irons that wrinkle out of his game, but it's a little concerning, right? And yet he is so talented offensively and he's a bucket even with that 3-point shot being a little wonky. He does so many other things offensively on the court that it's like, all right, at 25 or 24 years old, just turned 24. All right, I'll take him.
Yeah, I had him right after Dylan Harper too. So far we're like now in an order I have.
Yeah, I was a little bit lower. The shot just scares me so much.
Well,
If you're going to be a primary ball handler without a shot, I like look for the Amen level, Giannis level athlete, which Franz isn't. He has other things that they don't. I was just a little bit scared. That being said, when Paolo was out last year and when he was the leading that offense, which as we've covered has no space and is kind of a mess, he was like the runaway most improved player. He was going to be an all-star. He was probably going to have a real shot at all NBA. Then he gets hurt and it kind of falls apart. We shouldn't forget that. I think the circumstances for him, like for Paolo, have been a little bit disadvantageous. So I'm comfortable going a little bit higher on him. I had him at 24, so I was not going to take him for a little bit. But as you guys have both said, this range of the draft is going to, like, we're going to go off book a little bit here. I think we're going to see a few more surprising picks. So, Yossi, you're up now. Who are you taking?
I'm going to stick to my board. I'm Team Tyrese. I'll be going back to back with the Tyreses. I've got Tyrese Maxey now. Now I'm just looking really like at, age does have a part of it. He's still deceptively young. He's still only 24, about to turn 25. But I'm mainly looking at who I perceive as like the best ceiling raisers now. And I think Tyrese can be, he's still somewhat not like given, I don't think he still has like enough of a role in Philly, especially once they're fully healthy. But I think he can be a really great number 2 on a great
good
team.
news, Yossi. They're never gonna be. So you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it, buddy.
And another thing is, I feel like when looking at all these other guys, I think he still is like all the guys that we've taken. They're like trade your draft guys that would take like all of the team's first round picks to get. Obviously, the bar for that has gone lower with guys like Mikal Bridges and Desmond Bane getting taken for that. But I think Maxey's in that realm. I think he's better than those guys. What do you guys think about that?
I had him next on my board.
I'll defer to you as the Philly guy. So you had him next on your board?
Yeah. I mean, like he's really talented offensively. And yes, you're right about the role when fully healthy, but they're never going to be fully healthy and the team's a disaster. But just from him, and you know what? Great locker room guy. He's like actually a really nice kid, smart, has his head on straight. His teammates love him. And he's a bucket. So yeah, I like it.
Tyrese Maxey is a gamer. It's not just that he's a nice guy, but like That dude is competitive as
Yes,
hell.
yes.
He's somebody like you trust him in big moments, especially like when they had James Harden and Joel Embiid at the end. I remember even that game 7 they played against Boston where it's just like, can you guys get out of the way because you guys clearly don't have it? Can we trust Tyrese? Like I'm just a big believer in Tyrese Maxey the human being aside from Tyrese Maxey the player. He's a little bit of a defensive liability, sure, but most of these small guards are going to be. So I think it's totally reasonable. As a New Yorker, I feel obligated to take Jalen Brunson with the next pick. He's too good to last this long, right? He's not 40. He's 29. I think his game is going to age reasonably well. He's never been especially quick. It's all about the decel for him. He decelerates so quickly. He's so crafty. I think he's going to age just fine. I also get the very favorable contract, well below the max for him for I think the next 4 years. I don't remember if there's an option at the end, but at this point, I just feel like if I have Jalen Brunson and I don't totally mess up the rest of the team, I'm probably going to be pretty good pretty quickly. Is there more upside out there? Yes. But I look at the younger guys out here and I just say, if these teams called the Knicks and said, we'll give you these guys who are 20, 21, 22 for Brunson, they get laughed off the line. I know that there's some circumstance involved in that, but ultimately, I just don't think there's anybody with the upside here to dissuade me from taking Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, these last 6 picks last 5 picks, we've gone exactly in my order. He was next up on my board.
Next up for me too. I mean, at some point, it's kind of like the argument that I had for Giannis. At some point, you just have to take whatever's left of a guy who's really, really talented and who made, who was top 5 in the MVP voting 2 years ago and made All NBA again last season. So yeah, Jalen Brunson's a fine pick.
So we have 3 picks left each. John, you're up now. There's another player in this kind of range of skill set age. I'm curious if that's who you're going to take.
I hate all of this. I don't like it. I guess I'm going to do kind of what you just did and take a guy who's 29 years old and he's not 40. He's very talented. I don't like this. I mean, there's some guys who are younger that I was looking at. I just don't think they're as talented. One of the guys plays with him on the same team. He's very good and I considered it, but I'm going to take Donovan Mitchell, I guess. I don't love it. It's fine.
He was the next guy up on my board. Yossi, are you in agreement there? Have we gone whatever it is 6 for 6 now?
No, he was not next on my board, but he is coming up where I'll like him. There's a couple other guys in that age group where I'm probably gonna take him soon, but I'm not gonna feel too great about it.
Yeah,
especially
can confirm.
now, especially about like he's deceptively a little older. Almost 30, as you said. I don't like that contract that he just extended for. I wouldn't be surprised if before it kicks in, maybe the Cavs, like ahead of his player option, maybe both sides agree to like separate because once I'm sorry, I'm telling you, the extension's fine. I mean the super max he would be eligible for afterward. I don't like that. So that's the part that kind of gets me kind of iffy. Not just if I'm the Cavs, but any team starting a franchise that he's going to demand a 35% max, and I wouldn't want that as my franchise player.
He also misses 15 or 20 games most years.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a little underrated as a player, frankly. I am somebody who believes if you look at the number 1 offenses every year, if you throw out the weird Kings beam team year, it's like a very like vaunted list of the guys who've been the primary ball handler on a number 1 offense. It's like LeBron a bunch of times and Chris Paul a bunch of times and Dirk and Nash and like Curry. Like it's hard to get on that list. If you've been on that list, I generally feel pretty strongly about you. I also think his playoff performance has been very underrated because his teammates, frankly, don't join him, right? Like I think back to that Orlando series a couple years ago where he had to score 50 to save them in 1 game and they win in 7. The Knicks series a few years back, he was kind of the only guy who showed up. I don't think his teams have done him justice in the playoffs. I think he's an underrated player, but this is a build a franchise draft. And I think this is where contracts really start to come into play. Devin Booker in this age range, that contract extension is very scary.
Yeah.
A lot of other players in this range where you would say, as players, given their age, all things considered, the contract is going to scare some teams off. So John, you're up now. Are you looking at like one of these older guys, or are you going a little bit younger, a little bit cheaper?
No, that was my pick.
Oh, yeah, I got
Oh, that was
confused there.
So Yossi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Yossi's
Sorry.
up.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm gonna go back to a little more upside over established.
Please
I'm gonna
don't.
go.
Please don't. Please don't.
I'm gonna go with Brandon Miller here.
Oh, thank God you didn't take my guy. Explain Brandon Miller.
So I think it's still to be seen if if he can really impact winning, because I just think the scoring, his ability to score from what we've seen so far is very promising. We don't know if it's just gonna be more so in the realm of, quote unquote empty calories. That's yet to be seen. But with that size, with the volume of 3-pointers he's shooting, I feel like I'm inclined toward thinking that he is going to be an impactful player. And he doesn't need to be like an all-star, but if he can be get it to the level of some of the guys that we just took recently, I think it's possible. I know it's the Hornets and it feels like it's not going to get going, especially if he continues to have another big injury. But I think I got to take the upside here. I feel better about taking that than some of the other established guys available.
He has not played a serious NBA game. I refuse to take Hornets games seriously. John, I'm curious about this. Like, was Brandon Miller, like, I had him in the 30s. I didn't plan to take him. Where roughly was he on your board?
28. I had him in the top 30. I like that Yossi grabbed him because, like, again, whoever's watching your show and listening to your pod are going to be hardcore NBA players or NBA fans. And I think that the real ones know that he's the best Hornet. It's not LaMelo Ball. The other day, I watched LaMelo Ball jack up a catch and shoot fadeaway three early in the clock that Charles Lee, I thought, was going to plotz when he saw it, and pulled him aside afterwards and was like, "What are you doing?" I'm guessing because I don't read lips. I'm with Yossi that, like, Brandon Miller's got a lot of upside. Now, can he stay healthy? Are they finally going to wake up in Charlotte and go, "What are we doing with LaMelo Ball? We have to get him the hell out of here." There's a lot of contingencies here, but in Team Yossi franchise world, yes, I like him.
I have a strategy involving LaMelo Ball that we might get to a little bit later. I
Okay.
do agree with you. I think Brandon Miller is probably the guy who's likeliest to be the best player on their team if they eventually get good. We haven't talked about him defensively, but like, I think there's a lot there. He obviously has great tools. He was a good defender in college. I think he's going to be a very good all-around player. Injury last year, kind of a bummer. Let's see what this year looks like, but like, could they please get a couple of adults in the room? Would that be so hard? That team is so young. He has nobody around to like kind of be his vet right now. So that's a little bit disappointing. I'm very thankful, Yossi, you did not take my guy. I am taking Asar Thompson, the only guy in this draft who has a clone who's already been drafted, right? If you're that high on Amen, okay, Asar hasn't shown quite as much. He's never been quite the same ball handler that Amen has been. But I think he showed a lot down the stretch last year, and I think the Pistons have been talking a big game about, like, we're going to really incorporate him as a ball handler this year. We're going to see what else he's capable of. I am very, very bullish on Asar moving forward. John, you picked his brother, or was it Yossi who picked his brother? Who picked Amen?
Me.
Yossi snaked him.
Yossi, you picked Amen. So where are you on Asar? How far apart do you have them?
He's not in my top 30. I think if you're talking about who can be a potential franchise guy, I think you gotta have an offensive game. And like, what, like, does he have any, like, what can he do offensively? Like, what are his strengths?
Getting downhill, getting to the rim, throwing down dunks, like, everything is rim based for him for sure. And I think that he offensively, he's definitely more limited than his twin, but I know Sam is high on him for a lot of reasons. And what you just outlined about, like, his athleticism and defensively, Sam, I had him, when you say how far is the gap, this is how far the gap was for me. Cause if you hadn't taken him, I would have.
Yeah, I think he does not have the handle that Amen does. And even Amen's handle is a work in progress. He has to get better at, like, you think of him as a great athlete, as somebody who's going to be able to get to the rim at will. He has to get craftier. He has to get more on-ball reps to actually develop that part of his game. But he's grown quite a bit on that front in his first 2 years in the NBA. And the blood clot was like a pretty concerning medical issue that probably hampered him quite a bit last year, right? Like, if you're missing camp in the beginning of the season because of a potentially life-threatening medical condition, that's pretty serious. So I think this year with a full camp with a really promising end of last year, he's going to come out house on fire this year. I don't think they would trade him for a lot of the guys we've mentioned. Like Devin Booker is a guy who gets mock traded to Detroit a lot. I think if the Suns ever got to that point and they told the Pistons, you have to give us Sarr, the Pistons would say no. So I feel pretty happy with the Sarr at this point. I had a couple of guys who are like, I was considering over him, but ultimately I just think that athletic upside is too much to deny. John, it's your second to last pick. Where are you going with it?
My penultimate pick. I'm going to take a guy he's fine. I just wrote for CBSSports.com. It's a good website. Everybody should check it out. Some franchise player tiers. And I kind of like almost argued against this guy really being a true franchise player, so it's kind of ironic that I'm taking him now just because as I look at this board, okay, so could I like throw a dart, as Yossi was saying, and take some of the guys who are like 19, 20 years old, hope for the best? Yes. Instead, I'm going to take a 24-year-old who's just good. He's really good. And at this point in the draft, maybe he's never going to be great. Maybe he's never going to elevate this team into being like true contenders, but he's solid and he's not going to hurt you anywhere. And I'll take Scotty Barnes.
The reason to pick Scotty Barnes, I think, is if you extend this exercise out further and pretend like it was a snake draft and that his team was going to have another pick coming back up, you could get him a much better point guard than he's actually had in real life. And I think if he had Darius Garland on his team or Trae Young on his team or somebody like that, it would make a very big difference for him. He reminds me a lot of Andre Iguodala in Philadelphia, where he's being miscast as the franchise player when that's not who he should be. He should be Andre Iguodala in Golden State and be somebody who has a star or two around him and can just focus on doing everything else. So as a roster building exercise, the things he does are hard to find. It's just that his real team hasn't really put him in a position to succeed.
Yeah.
So I totally understand taking Scotty at this point of the draft. Yossi, are you with us on this?
Yeah, Scotty was definitely in like now I'm in the realm where I don't have an exact order, but he's in the tier of the guys I would have taken next. Like, do you guys? And that's interesting that just like a quick Asar versus Scotty Barnes debate. Like, who do you guys think ended up being the better player? I'm guessing Sam, you think Asar will.
I think Asar will, but remember, even if he I have 2 years of insurance age-wise, and 3 years of I think experience. I think Scotty has played 5 now, or has he played 4? I've got a couple extra years of upside to play with. I think if you made me pick, like, for sure who is going to be the better player, I might go like 51-49 Scotty. It's close. But at this range, I'm taking the upside, and I think Asar's is higher.
Yeah, the upside, the athleticism, and the extra years. I had them in the same tier. Like I said, I would have taken Asar if you hadn't, Sam, but you did, so I'll take Scotty.
He just, again, I hate to bemoan the point. He is doing too much on offense. He's being asked to do too much on offense. He is not a primary ball handler, and that's fine. You can be an all-star without being a primary ball handler. I hope that his shooting goes back to where it was when he made an all-star game a couple of years ago, when that first half of, I think, the 23-24 season, it looked like the shot was fixed. Last year, obviously, it regressed. I really hope he can at least get to like normal below average instead of in the 20s. But he does a lot of things for you. And I think when he eventually finds a roster that makes more sense, he's going to be able to show that off a little bit more. Yossi, your second to last pick. Who you got?
Yeah, it's very tough. I'm
Deep
just
sigh.
gonna go with the guy who I kind of have at the top of the list, and that's Darius Garland.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Just interesting. He's the first guy we've taken the 2019 draft, and I've recently in my head thought about like if you can redo the top 3 of the 2019 draft, Darius Garland might be number 1. Just knowing all the unavailability to Zion and Ja, but he's actually like I think in some ways he's just as impactful as them. You just can't really see it because he's a third option on a really stacked team. So I think he's a lot better than his numbers suggest, and I think he's an excellent point guard that you can have on a championship team.
Durability is another concern here. He misses a lot of time and defense and size. He was somebody that, like, I had him outside of my top 30, but I obviously understand it. And the role he plays in Cleveland is a little unusual, where he is like not a traditional point guard, especially given the shooting. He is like Steph is obviously the best deep shooter in the NBA. I think Darius Garland is number two. And when Steph eventually retires, that's going to be potentially his title to gain. He stretches defenses a lot more than I think people give him credit for. You have to be so disciplined about putting defense and size around him. John, you sounded like you were pro Garland. You would have taken him in this range.
Yeah, I had him right in that same tier along with Asar and Scotty. 25, about to be 26. Yeah, he's the third option. But like, there were a couple of years. If you had asked me a couple of years ago, I would not have him anywhere near this discussion. And even a couple of years ago, before Kenny Atkinson became the head coach, I was like, man, you got to unplug somebody. I don't see him working with Donovan Mitchell. And instead, Kenny was like, no, it's going to be great. And they're going to be fantastic together. So yes, I mean, and even when I took Donovan Mitchell earlier, I considered taking Darius Garland first because he's 4 years younger, 3.5 years younger than Donovan Mitchell. I just think that Donovan Mitchell is just a scotch better. So yeah, I got no problems with Garland.
I'm about to do something that I never do, which is overreact to the NBA preseason. You shouldn't do this for so many reasons.
No, I love
I
it.
just
Do it.
can't help myself. Ace Bailey. He looks so good.
That's
I get
hilarious.
4 years of rookie contract money. I get to tank for 1 or 2 years, give him every possession, let him do whatever he wants, take all of the shots he desires while I add another couple of lottery picks. I've been sucked in. He looks so good. Leading into the draft, I was all the way VJ. And I still love VJ. I considered VJ in this slot. I think VJ is going to be an all-star. The stuff that Ace can potentially do with his combination of size and skill, that's why Brandon Ingram gets drafted second and keeps getting these huge contracts. It's so rare and so valuable to have a forward of that size who can have that diverse a scoring game. We have a few guys like this every year who just, for whatever reason, make more sense in the NBA than they do in college. Like, I think for most often, it's bigs on teams that don't have guards who can't get set up. Evan Mobley was the quintessential version of this. If anybody watched him at USC with those terrible guards, he was so much better in the NBA right when he got there. I think Ace Bailey potentially could fall into that category, where he was on this weird Rutgers team where Dylan Harper was also there, and they were both kind of trying to use that team as a showcase, as a launching pad. Like, Dylan Harper came out of that situation a lot better, but the rest of the team was really a mess. There's a reason guys don't usually go to Rutgers. So, Yossi, was Ace on your board at all? Have you been sucked in by the preseason?
I've heard about how he did in the preseason. I had him next, I basically right next to Garland, and it's just solely based on nothing. Just you gotta try. I think that you gotta take a shot on the potential. I don't think there's anything wrong with the pick.
We're in pure upside territory at this point.
Yeah,
John, you strike me as a preseason believer. You strike me as somebody who bases takes off of preseason basketball.
Oh, I'm going to do you one better, buddy. This is my last pick, right?
Yes.
So you're talking about how you're basing it off of preseason. I absolutely get suckered in by preseason. As I mentioned earlier, I don't get to watch a lot of, or really any outside of the tournament, college basketball, because I'm focused on the NBA and there's so many games and we're doing it every single day. And we thank CBS for allowing us to do so. But I didn't see the guy that you just mentioned, VJ Edgecombe, until Summer League, when he was throwing down absolutely ridiculous monster slams in Utah in an empty gym against like 6 other teams. I don't know, it's like blown away. And then he goes to Abu Dhabi and there's like grainy footage that comes out on Twitter. And I'm like, listen, the Sixers are a disaster. I expect them to go nowhere fast, probably for the foreseeable future, because that's what they've done the entire time that I've been alive, and I'm quite old now. This kid, his athleticism, we talked about the Thompson twins and how, like, even without a shot, your athleticism can really influence the game if you do other things. we'll see whether or not VJ Edgecombe gets the minutes and is part of the rotation, and like what Nick Nurse does with him. But just from an athleticism standpoint, that's a great starting point. And he's only 20 years old. That's my last pick, and I'm throwing the dart.
Yeah, he was so good for the Bahamas too. I love a young guy who really fits in on a more mature, older team. Doing that in international competition is no small thing. I am a huge, huge fan of VJ. I think he's going to be an all-star. I've seen some of these Victor Oladipo comps, and I feel like they're almost used a little bit derisively, like, oh, he's never going to be a primary playmaker on a very good offense. He's going to be a good scorer, but he's going to throw down the big dunks, and he can shoot threes, and he has very, very high defense potential. But he's never going to be a heliocentric primary ball handler, primary scorer kind of guy. And I'm just like, who cares? Victor Oladipo was awesome.
Yeah.
Every team would love to have a healthy in his prime Victor Oladipo. So I am totally on board with this. Yossi, let's make it unanimous. Are you a VJ guy?
I didn't have him high enough to take him next, but that's not really based on anything. So I have nothing else to add on him.
Your last pick.
So I really don't. I'll just kind of give you the list of guys I'm looking at. In no particular order. There's John Morant, Jaylen Brown, Bam Adebayo, Avdia, Alex Sarr, Trae Young, Zion, and Jaren Jackson. So the upside in my brain wants me to take Alex Sarr because I suppose he has the most upside, but like I don't know if his ceiling is going to be as good as some of the primes of some of these guys left. And my brain really wants me to take John Morant because I think he should have the best career left over, but I'm really concerned about the last 2 years with the injuries, and he kind of took a step back when he was on the floor.
Is he even the best player on that team? I don't think so.
So it's just a bet. If I'm going to take him, it's a bet. Do I think he's going to get back to that, all NBA, borderline MVP conversation level? That's the thing. Because if he can get back to that, then I think he's the obvious pick. But like some of the guys we talked about earlier who relies on athleticism, definitely, he's more of a bigger regression candidate than the rest of these guys. So I still kind of want to take him. I'll just take John Morant. My heart wants him to. I'm just not that confident if he is going to get back to pre-2024 or I guess 2023 levels. I think it's like 50-50 at this point that he gets back. I mean,
as just like an entertainment perspective goes, watching that guy is amazing. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA. The problem is what you alluded to, which is that he's played 59 games total over the last 2 years. And like over these last 2 years without him out, like the more that I've thought about it, the more I've been like, Jaren Jackson's the better player. He's at least the more reliable player, and he plays both ends of the floor. I mean, like, look, Ja is a highlight and he is fun, but everything that makes him good, that fearlessness, that athleticism, that like, I'm going to just absolutely put my body in reckless abandon. Like that's part of the reason why he's never out there.
He was off of my board.
Yeah. Off of my board too.
He was, it was aside from the injuries, you can't dismiss the off court stuff. I'm not saying like, I think he's going to get suspended again. I'm just saying like, I really question his judgment when he does the gun thing after everything that happened in the Instagram live video. I just like, this is not a human being I feel comfortable building a franchise around. I hope he proves me wrong. There's a lot I like about Memphis. I love watching him play.
Yes.
I hope he matures, frankly. I just would not be willing to make that bet. Doesn't shoot threes, doesn't defend. His game is so heavily based on athleticism. I was not going to pick him, but I have the final pick in the draft. And I mentioned that I had a strategy with LaMelo Ball. And I think this is going to dovetail nicely with a lot of the guys who weren't picked in this draft. I'm taking LaMelo Ball at 30, still on the board. Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, a lot of more established stars. My strategy here is I don't know in this fictional world, we haven't built it out that far, if this is a snake draft, if it's a normal draft, if everybody else is a free agent. if I have to trade up, if I have to give out a big contract, whatever, I am doing everything in my power to make sure that I get Stephen Curry on this team somehow. I just think if you put LaMelo Ball in a grown-up situation outside of Charlotte, where there are good veterans around him that he can learn from, maybe mature a little bit, I am still so excited about that talent. I think he's one of the just most creative players in the NBA. I know that often manifests as him taking like utterly ridiculous shots, but you know what? He has the talent to make them. If we could just rein in some of his worst impulses, get him to play a little bit harder on defense, I just think the talent is significant enough that I feel comfortable taking him, knowing that I have a full other avenue of roster building, of other ways to build this roster out to maybe put him in a better environment. So I'll ask you guys about LaMelo Ball, obviously, but like Yossi, I bring up Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant, LeBron. How far down would you have to go before you start considering those guys?
Um, I would have started considering Steph maybe 10 spots below, because I think out of those guys, I feel like we're seeing LeBron play into his early 40s. I could see Steph play into potentially his mid 40s. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but because his game is like, I guess, the laziest of the others, like it demands the least of them physically. I could see him extend his prime the longest. But that's about it. I wouldn't have considered KD, LeBron, but it's interesting that you took LaMelo. Like with Ja, in a way they are upside picks, because we're betting, not betting, but like the hope is that, like, as long as they can overcome whatever it is that's holding them back, then they truly are remarkable players. Like, I would think Ja would probably go at least 10 spots earlier if he didn't have the suspension, didn't have these injuries, and just built on his playing up until 2023. With LaMelo, he would probably go a little bit higher too if he didn't have so many injuries, if he was a little more serious. So it's an interesting bet we're taking. Like, where that the upside of these guys getting their shit together has probably more upside than some of the best rookies or sophomores available right now.
I think after Ja won Most Improved Player, he would have been a top 10 pick in a draft like this. Like after, I think, 23 or maybe it was 22, he would have gone like higher than Amen went, where it's like, oh, this is the ultra athletic guard who can get to the rim at will now. Obviously wasn't a defender that Amen was, but the upside was so high. He was younger, he was healthier. John, I'm going to ask you three players, and I want you to rank them in order of where you would have drafted them. Stephen Curry, LaMelo Ball, and Reed Shepherd.
Reed, Steph, because you only have so many years left of Steph, and I would rather saw off my arm than have LaMelo Ball on my team. There's just no, you're talking about a fantasy world. What are you talking about? You're talent wise, sure, absolutely, but head wise, from his shoulders up, something's going on there. Like he, you know what he reminds? I live in Los Angeles. He reminds me of the guys that I see in Venice Beach who are on the Strand. Like they've got their boombox and they've got their roller skates and they're just like out having a good time. And they're burning incense and some other stuff. And it's like, they're not aware of the program of everybody else around them. That's LaMelo Ball in basketball form. Like, no, thank you.
So who are the guys that you're looking at this and you're saying either I'm surprised they didn't go, or like, what are your takeaways here, John? Like, having done this exercise now, is there anything that you would have done differently? Is there anybody you would have taken that you regret not taking? Is there anybody that you're like, I can't believe they didn't get taken?
Yeah, there's a couple of guys that I thought might go. I mean, Yossi had mentioned Alex Sarr. I think defensively, obviously, his talent is pretty undeniable. What kind of offensive game he can piece together. I'm still hopeful for him. He's only 20 years old. A little surprised, but I guess not, because they're 29 years old, that Jaylen Brown and Devin Booker didn't go. Not surprised when you rattled off LeBron, Steph, and KD. Not surprised that they didn't go. I mean, like, it's great. They're fantastic. They're generational talents. But if you're building a franchise, I'm going to need more than like another season or two of LeBron, a few more of KD, a few more of Steph. Steph's incredible. And I agree with Yossi that his game will age pretty well. Although I disagree a little bit on like the amount of effort that he has to put into his game. Like he's constantly moving off ball and he has to be tired as hell after every game. But all that said, I just need more time with those guys than you're going to get out of them. But on the whole, I think like we did yeoman's work today, guys. Good job.
Yeah. Out of all the guys you just mentioned, I didn't have Devin Booker like even in my top. Didn't even make the top 50 original.
Keep that contract away.
Bad contract. And also, like, I just for the franchise players piece that I was talking about, like, even at 29, even if you took the contract out of it, like, what does he really get you? Like, he had KD next to him. They won 36 games.
Yeah, I think he's basically up there with Embiid and Paul George for worst contracts in the league. So, like, he didn't even make my like rough, huge list.
Yeah,
when I started doing this.
I'm going to pitch a Galaxy Brain strategy that I had and I didn't ultimately use, but I considered. I wondered if it might have made sense to draft Anthony Davis or Jaylen Brown, somebody like that, who's a little bit older, but still like a win now superstar, and just say, I am drafting this player for the sake of trading him for 4 first-round picks and then tanking as a team-building strategy. Yossi, was that viable to you at all?
I mean, I probably would have taken him if we had one more pick. I probably would have taken him next.
Him, Anthony Davis, or him, Jaylen Brown?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jaylen Brown. I probably would have taken him next. I think even like at the finals, the MVP really solidified him for me. At the same time, I got to be consistent. That is probably a rough contract, but I think I think I would have taken him next, even though he's a little older. Let's see, he's 28, about to turn 29. Like he's not that old. I'm a little I think I would have is between him and Ja for my last pick. I'm a little worried about the knee for Jaylen. Like I've seen, I know he hasn't like missed a lot of games, but like I'm a little worried. Like I've seen that flare up throughout the past few years. That might be nothing. But yeah, I think he would have gone probably my next pick.
We have been on for nearly 2 hours at this point. I think now is a good time to wrap it up. Let's do some plugs. John, plug our corporate home.
Yeah, come and find us over at cbssports.com. We got all kinds of good stuff. We've got NBA season previews coming up. We just rolled out our top 100. My list was unimpeachable. Sam's a little bit more peachable.
Slightly peachable.
Yeah, definitely peachable. I did rank LaMelo Ball, but I was the lowest on him by a million miles. I think I had him at like 76, and I feel good about that. I think I might have had him too high, to be honest with you. And then, as I mentioned, I just put our franchise player tiers together, and then next week we're gonna have a whole bunch more stuff as the season tips off on Tuesday. So come check that out and watch us on CBS Sports HQ, which you can find streaming online or on Paramount Plus.
Yossi, what do you got cooking?
Subscribe to Third Apron, the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and the newsletter on Substack. Looking to post some more stuff on there. Yeah, that's just about that's it. Just Third Apron everything.
John, you handled our corporate plugs better than I ever could have, so I think this is the right way to wrap it up. For John and Yossi, I am Sam. Thank you for listening to the Third Apron podcast. If you are mad about our picks, be sure to let us know. I'm not going to tell you how because I really don't want to hear your anger, but I do want the engagement. So you know what? Come at me, Sam Quinn CBS on Twitter. But that'll do it for us here today on the Third Apron podcast. We will be back next week.